Have you ever dropped to your knees and screamed in silence while the sky stayed mute? Have you cried in the dark of an empty room, waiting for a sign, any sign, and nothing? Have you prayed with your soul torn open, yet felt like your words never made it past the ceiling? It sounds harsh, but sometimes prayer hurts more than silence, because in it we place hope and reap an echo. They promised that if you prayed with faith, everything would change, that God would open doors, heal wounds, and turn your pain into a testimony. But there you are, on your knees, repeating the same prayer for the 10th, 50th, 100th time, and your life is still stuck. And the worst part, it feels like God is too busy, or worse, that He's forgotten you. But what if I told you this silence isn't a no, nor a punishment? What if what feels like abandonment is actually the symptom of an invisible error that shows up every time you pray? Yes, it's hard to admit, but there are moments when we're not really praying. We're just dumping desperation. We're not talking with God. We're venting like someone shouting into the void. And that's where the mistake lies, because God doesn't answer echoes. He answers His children. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. But is your heart truly broken or just exhausted? Have you stopped to think about how you're praying? Not how much, not how long, but how. Because some people pray every day and never say a single honest word. Prayer turns into a string of memorized lines, pretty phrases, church cliches. But God isn't moved by performance. He's moved by surrender. I remember a woman once who prayed without making a sound. Her lips moved, but no voice came out. It was Hannah. She was in deep pain, anguished, and cried out for a son. And Eli the priest thought she was drunk. Her pain was so intimate, so real, it didn't fit religious expectations. But do you know what God did? He listened. 1 Samuel 1:10-13. Because God isn't impressed by volume, He's impressed by truth. Here comes the turn that might sting. Sometimes you're not being ignored by God, you're being ignored by yourself. Ignored by the lies you tell yourself, by the faith you pretend to have, by the pose you keep up even before God. You bend your knee, but you won't bend your pride. You say, your will be done, but deep down you expect Him to just say, amen to yours. You know what hurts most? Realizing we're treating prayer like a magic key, not a place of encounter. And when God doesn't answer on our timeline, we give up, get bitter, or keep praying out of obligation. That's where heaven goes quiet. Because God doesn't answer formulas. He answers sons and daughters who trust even when they don't understand. Like Job, who declared, though He slay me, yet will I hope in Him. Job 13:15. Would you dare to pray like that? Prayer was never meant to control God. It was meant to surrender to Him. And until that happens, until your heart is stripped bare, you'll keep talking and feeling like nothing's happening, because the problem was never God's absence. The problem is that maybe your prayer isn't being born from the right place yet. You don't need to pray pretty. You need to pray naked. Stripped of masks, stripped of control, stripped of religiosity. Pray like someone who has nothing left to bring, only a shard of a broken self. Because from that altar of ruins, God raises the greatest stories. And maybe that's the point today, to admit that something needs to change. Not outside you, but inside. Because heaven still listens. It's just waiting for your prayer to finally speak the language of truth. Do you know what destroys prayer more than anything? Not the absence of faith, not a lack of words, it's habit. Yes, the mechanical habit of talking to God without a soul. You wake up and say a morning prayer because it's the right thing. You go to bed and repeat memorized lines because you need to give thanks. But deep down, you don't feel a thing. Nobody tells you this, but there's a subtle, almost imperceptible moment when prayer stops being an encounter and becomes an obligation, a task on the to-do list, like brushing your teeth. And then something dies inside. You notice it when you pray and seconds later can't remember what you said. When the words come out, but your heart is absent. When you say, "Lord, thank you for another day," but deep down you're full of anger, fear, anxiety, and you don't have the courage to tell God that. You don't realize it, but you've gotten addicted to praying right, and you stopped praying real. Scripture speaks to this with a razor's edge. Isaiah 29:13 says, "These people draw near to me with their mouths and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." That's the prayer that never reaches heaven, the one that comes from the lips but not the soul. Ever felt like that? Like you're talking to God just because that's what a believer is supposed to do? You close your eyes, fold your hands, say, "Our Father," but you no longer know what you're asking for, or even who you're talking to. It's tough to hear, but God doesn't move at religious speeches. He moves at realism, at raw truth, at a sincere whisper. And here's the reality check. A lot of people are frustrated with God, saying He doesn't answer, when in fact they're the ones not present. Yes, the body is there, eyes closed, but the soul is on the past due. Bill, the partner's betrayal, the fear of tomorrow. And God, being Father, doesn't answer masks. He waits for real sons and daughters. Remember Martha and Mary? One was too busy trying to do the right thing, organize, serve, present something nice. The other simply fell at Jesus' feet, and she's the one who chose the better part. Luke 10:38-42. It's not the volume of your prayer that moves God. It's the hunger, not the beauty of your words, the thirst of your heart. Maybe that's why you pray and nothing happens, because your lips are asking for something, but inside you no longer believe. You're talking to God but not expecting an answer. You're keeping up a ritual, not a relationship. God doesn't want your routine. He wants your truth. Even if it comes packed with anger, even if it comes with tears, with doubt, with pain, He can handle it. He understands. What He won't take is a lie dressed up as prayer. So today, maybe for the first time in a long while, you need to stop and say something honest, even if it's only, "God, I don't know how to pray anymore. Help me." That sentence, simple, imperfect, full of weakness, is more powerful than 1,000 rehearsed words. Maybe that's the first step to breaking the invisible addiction. Admitting you've been praying without a soul and finding the courage to feel again. There are things we try to forget, but God remembers. Not because He wants to punish you, but because He wants to heal you. The truth is, many prayers get blocked, not by lack of faith, but by what's hidden deep inside the soul. Unconfessed sins, hurts you swallowed that still rot within, twisted motives you barely notice, but that drive everything you ask for. And you keep praying and keep hearing the same silence. You can't talk to God wearing masks. He searches the innermost parts. He reads what no one else sees. As written in Jeremiah 17:10, "I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind." Maybe that's why heaven seems silent. God isn't quiet because He forgot you. He's giving you time to remember who you are, where you fell, and what you need to let go of. Have you noticed some prayers sound beautiful but are completely contaminated? You ask God to prosper you, but deep down, it's not for provision, it's for pride. To prove something to someone. You cry for a relationship to be restored, but still harbor bitterness toward the one who hurt you. You ask for peace, but refuse to release the habit that feeds your anxiety. Here's the painful part. God doesn't answer prayer that's born from a divided heart. Psalm 66:18 spells it out. "If I had cherished sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened." Yes, God may go quiet before a heart that pretends to be clean, but inside is full of poison. It's like trying to drink pure water from a filthy cup. You can say you're thirsty, but unless you're willing to wash the cup, you'll keep drinking what makes you sick. Sometimes the scariest thing is realizing we've gotten used to hiding things, even from God, as if He didn't know, as if He didn't see, but He sees. He saw when you lied. He saw the resentment you never surrendered. He saw what you did and then pretended you didn't. And even so, He stayed waiting for you to open up. True prayer begins when we undress, when we admit, Lord, I'm flawed, I'm dirty, I'm broken, and only your blood can make me clean. Do you know what happened with David, a man after God's own heart? He committed adultery, lied, murdered, hid it. But when he came to his senses, he wrote, when I kept silent, my bones wasted away. Psalm 32:3. Only when he confessed did healing come. That's the turning point. It's no use praying for change if you won't face confrontation. No use crying out for restoration if you want to keep your hiding place untouched. Prayer is where God heals, but he only heals what you reveal. Maybe today is the day you stop praying pretty and start praying naked, with your soul exposed, with a clean conscience, with real repentance, because when the heart surrenders, heaven answers, and sometimes God is silent, because there's still something you need to confess. What if I told you that God has already answered you, but you didn't notice? Or worse, you noticed and rejected it, because his answer didn't come in the format you expected or with the words you wanted to hear. Have you considered that the nothing happened you feel is because you only accept the answer if it's pleasant? You pray for peace, yet hold tight to chaos. You cry for deliverance, yet sleep with sin under your pillow. You beg for direction, yet refuse to take the first step when God says go. And then you conclude, God didn't answer me, but he did. You just didn't want to listen. The truth hurts, but it sets you free. God doesn't always answer the way you want. He answers the way you need. And often the mistake is expecting an emotional, magical, cinematic response. While God is speaking through doors he closed, people he removed, unease he allowed, and waiting he used to break your pride. You prayed for clarity and lost that job. You asked to be used by God, and everything around you fell apart. You cried for healing, and the pain got worse. Did God really not answer? Or is he answering through process, and you're rejecting it because you prefer shortcuts? In John 5, Jesus meets a man who'd been paralyzed for 38 years. He asks, do you want to get well? The answer seems obvious, right? But the man starts making excuses. I have no one to help me. When I try, someone else gets in first. He was so stuck on the expected form of the miracle that he almost missed the source of the miracle. Christ himself, standing in front of him. How many times are you exactly like that, waiting for the answer through a specific sign, a specific person, a comfortable path? All the while, God is answering with an uncomfortable instruction. Cut that relationship. Stop playing the victim. Forgive the one who hurt you. Take the first step. Close that door you insist on keeping open, but you don't hear it because you're waiting for something that soothes you, not something that transforms you. Here's the reality check. You don't want an answer. You want confirmation of what you already decided. But God isn't here to massage your ego. He's here to save your soul. God's answer is rarely what the heart desires, but it's always what the soul needs. Maybe right now, he's already spoken. Through the word, through someone, through pain, but you're so fixated on how you wanted it to be that you can't see what already is. The prayer that works isn't the one that demands a result. It's the one that accepts his will, even when God's will is different from yours. So before you say God didn't answer, go back and reread the signs. Look at the paths he closed, the people who left, the doors that stayed shut, that peace that vanished, that gentle voice that troubles you in the silence. Maybe his answer is crystal clear, but your heart is still closed. Have you ever wondered why God is silent even after so many sincere prayers? Felt like heaven went deaf, like you're alone, talking to the walls? It's brutal, because God's silence screams. Sometimes it hurts more than a no. But what if this silence isn't punishment? What if it's not abandonment? What if it's training? No one likes to wait, especially when you're wounded, broken, desperate for an answer. But God's silence has a purpose. He never wastes a wait. It's in the gap between request and response that he forges faith. In the silence, he quiets the noise of the soul to speak to the spirit. Remember Lazarus? When he got sick, His sisters sent word to Jesus, and Jesus, knowing their pain, could have gone immediately, but he waited 4 days. He waited until the body smelled, until natural faith had died. Then he came, not when everyone wanted, but when no one expected. And at that moment he raised Lazarus to show that even in silence, he's still in control. John 11. God's silence isn't his absence, it's his process. It's the way he teaches you to trust when there are no answers, to walk by faith, not by feelings. It's easy to say, Lord, I trust you when everything's fine. But when everything collapses and he says nothing, that's the real battlefield of faith. There you discover whether you believe in promises or just in payoffs. Abraham waited 25 years for Isaac. Joseph spent 13 years between being sold by his brothers and being exalted in Egypt. David was anointed king, then spent years on the run, living in caves. All of them experienced silence. All of them were trained in the dark before shining in the light. You pray for an answer, but God is forging resilience. You ask for a sign, and he's shaping your obedience, because more important than the answer is the kind of person you become while you wait. That's hard to accept. We want relief, not refinement, deliverance, not lessons. But God is a father, not a magician. And loving fathers train, loving fathers prepare. Maybe what squeezes your chest most today is this silence. But that silence may be the sign that God considers you ready for something greater. So ready that he decided to trust you even when you feel nothing. As Isaiah 64:4 says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined a God like you who works for those who wait for him. Yes, he's working, even in silence, even when everything in you screams to give up. He's training you to hear beyond the noise, to feel beyond emotion, to believe beyond logic. And when the silence ends, you won't be the same, because the purest gold only comes out of the hottest fire. There comes a moment when you finally see it. The prayer God hears isn't the prettiest, it's the truest. It doesn't matter if you speak well. It doesn't matter if you can quote verses by heart. It doesn't matter if your voice trembles with emotion, if your heart doesn't tremble before God. It's just noise, just performance. The truth is, we learned how to pray beautifully, but not how to pray broken. We learned ready-made phrases, moving tones, gestures that impress others. But we forgot that God doesn't listen to lips. He listens to intentions. He's not interested in your "dear Father," said in a soft voice. He's interested in what you don't have the courage to say. Luke 18 shows a powerful scene, 2 men praying. A Pharisee full of self-righteousness, thanking God he wasn't like other people. The other, a tax collector, who could barely look up, beat his chest and said, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." And Jesus said, "I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God." Luke 18:14. Do you know why? Because God leans toward truth, no matter how dirty it is. He's not looking for well-crafted prayers. He's looking for sincere hearts. Some people no longer feel God's presence because they stopped being real with him. They're trying to keep up appearances even before the Creator. They don't cry anymore, don't cry out anymore. They're afraid of looking weak. But it was precisely when Peter sank and shouted, "Lord, save me," Matthew 14:30, that Jesus grabbed him by the hand. God can't resist a desperate cry. He moves toward what's raw, torn, imperfect, because truth pierces heaven faster than any rehearsed speech. Maybe, just maybe, what's missing in your prayer is the courage to say what you really feel, to admit you're tired, to confess you're mad at him, to say you don't understand anything anymore, to say, "God, I've got no strength left, not even faith, but I'm still here, because I've got no one else." That he hears, that he breaks heaven for. Psalm 51:17 says, "A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise." That's the prayer that cuts through the silence. Not because it moves emotions, but because it surrenders. It surrenders pride. It surrenders control. It surrenders everything. Enough of praying as if you're trying to convince God. Start praying like someone who needs Him. Don't try to impress. Pour yourself out. Expose yourself. God already knows. He's just waiting for you to say it. Not for Him, but for you. Because when the soul finally undresses, heaven opens, and what was dry blooms again. You prayed, you waited, you cried, and you almost gave up. You almost believed God didn't hear you. You almost concluded that all of this, your faith, your hope, your fight to stay standing, was in vain. But then, one day, with no warning, no setup, the answer came. And in that exact moment, everything made sense. Every tear, every silence, every night you prayed and felt nothing, every time you wanted to disappear but stayed. The answer didn't come when you wanted, but it came when you were ready. And you understood God was never silent. You just didn't yet have the maturity to hear what He wanted to say. We spend so much time asking when, why, how long, that we forget God works in layers we can't see. He sees the end of the road when we only see the bend. He sees the open wound and is already planning the scar. He sees the fall and the resurrection too. That's how it was with Joseph. Betrayed, sold, forgotten. For years it looked like God had abandoned him. But the day he was pulled from prison and made governor of Egypt, he understood. With tears in his eyes, he told the brothers who hurt him, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Genesis 50:20. God hadn't forgotten him. God was shaping him. Maybe now you're starting to understand why it took so long. If you had received it earlier, you would have wasted it. If you had gotten it on your timeline, you would have lost it on His. The delay was protection. The waiting was transformation. You weren't ready. Your heart was still bound to pride, fear, anxiety. But now, after so many ripped open prayers, so many empty days, you're different. Not just stronger, deeper, more sensitive to His voice, more grateful. And when the answer came, it didn't come alone. It brought a new you, a you who now knows God isn't limited by your timing, a you who now prays with more faith, not because everything is fine, but because you learned to trust when everything was falling apart. That changes everything, because the answer that transforms the most isn't the one that changes circumstances, it's the one that changes your soul. Yes, God heard from day one. As the angel told Daniel, from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard. Daniel 10:12. The answer was on its way the whole time, but the process was necessary so that when it arrived, you'd be able to receive it, and not just use it, but honor it. Now you understand. The silence wasn't absence. The delay wasn't disdain. The waiting wasn't in vain. It was a plan. It was grace. It was love. If you've made it this far, I truly want to congratulate you. You're someone who isn't chasing easy answers, but genuine wisdom. Someone willing to grow, to face deep truths, and to draw near to God with more sincerity and surrender. And that is rare. Now here's my invitation. Share in the comments what touched you most in this video. And if you're not sure what to write, just comment, "I'm grateful to God." That way we'll know you stayed with us till the end and you're walking with us on this journey of faith. Also, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos and can keep being nourished by uplifting messages that can transform your walk with Christ. And if you'd like to go even deeper and help this project reach more people, consider becoming a channel member. Beyond supporting this ministry, you'll have access to exclusive content, deeper reflections, and special materials. Finally, stay till the end of the video. We'll leave 2 recommended messages that will surely strengthen your faith and help you live with purpose, courage, and intimacy with God. May God bless you powerfully. See you in the next video.